when I was in Wilkes-Barre, I was brought there as dome counselor. So every night I would have to go around and check on all the boys, see where they were, if they were on the street, if they were in the Zal, if they were upstairs, downstairs, always doing my rounds. And I was a new dorm counselor there, and I was going around to get to know everyone, to see things, figure things out. And I was told, you come to Wilkes-Barre, it's a wild place. Things are crazy, and
Is it wild?
it's an amazing place. Truly amazing. I think such an inspiring place for life, and I learned so much from there. Very prominent, amazing, amazing establishment. What I saw was kind of surprised me. I see this Bacher sitting there, and every night he's sitting learning Rambam, he's getting his shiur done all day. He's learning. What's going on? So I get to know him, but his name is Manny Overland. They gave me permission to say his story. Amazing, amazing experience. I end up end up bringing with him all the time for many nights, and he tells me what happened to him. For context, at the time there was a Rashpia there. I think he's still teaching there, or Pena Levitin. Pena Levitin's teaching there. And Pena, when I first arrived, I get off the bus. I'm all exhausted. I'm coming from California, and he's there. Somehow he knew I was arriving. He's there with a plate of chicken and rice. He's arranged that I have food. Every morning he goes and wakes up the buffer and he makes it that they say Kriya Shema, Bismana, and really, really, really cares. And so he tells me when I first arrived, then he tells me, I was very combative. Then he lost his mother before his bar mitzvah, and he just was having a really hard time. He came to Wilkes-Barre, he had his hair grown out, and he was just a wild, wild character. But he promised his mother on her deathbed, he promised her three things. He's told her that he was going to keep Shabbos. She asked him, please keep Shabbos, keep kosher, and put tefillin on every day. So he decided, you know what? In honor of my mother, I'm going to do it for 1 year. I'm going to do it for 1 year. But otherwise, I'm done. I'm done. This is enough. For 1 year, I'm going to keep Shabbos, kosher, and put on tefillin every day. So he's there, but he's cynical the whole time. Every argument he starts arguing, every Farbrengen he starts arguing about the Holocaust.
The walls were up.
Yeah, the walls were up. He's arguing with everyone and combative and everything. A little into his tenure there. Opinion said, come for a walk. Let's talk a little bit, see what's going on. So he goes for a walk. And as usual, his arguments come out, and he says, if God is good, why is the Holocaust happen? Why did my mother die? Why so many suffering? My father's too busy, he's on shluchas, and why is it so hard? And on and on and on. After quite a while of him describing all his pain and difficulties, he looks up to see the standard argument that he was always getting back. No, we don't always understand God's thing, and instead he looks up at Erpinia and sees Erpinia's crying. And he looked like he was trying to hide it from him. Like he was trying to hide his tears from him. Manny's perspective when he spoke to me was every person, every mechanech that he was speaking to until then was making like this general problem that people have about God doing bad things and that people going through difficulties and we don't understand. Here was somebody who was listening to him and saw a kid struggling, going through difficulty, a kid who lost his mother before his bar mitzvah. And this opened my mind to that we have another level of chinuch. We have another level that we could dig into. It's not just always about arguing with kids and confronting kids and calling them out and telling them how silly they are and how wrong they are and that you should listen.
I think what's beautiful about that story is that Rapinian wasn't trying to fix it. Because I think we were speaking about last week, like chinuch is the long haul.
Right.
It's the process. And a lot of times we might be trying to fix it, but Rapinian wasn't trying to fix it.
Well, not trying to fix it.
He was
genuinely being there and caring for the kid.
And he understood that with time, if I could be here for this kid, then together we can go.
And he wasn't just trying to take a shortcut. So often people are just trying to okay, come on, but you have to, hello, don't you realize? And we do that with our kids, and I do it sometimes, and we all make these mistakes. Like, how could you do such a thing? That's it. You're in trouble. Go to your room. You have to resolve this. We have to fix this immediate. I think that slowly is a process that I'm learning, and especially in Lamplighters, from learning from Rabbi Zalmy and Mor Kelly and others, to really see the actual way of getting through to the child versus these cheap shortcuts.
Do you think that is the Chabad approach? Is that the real approach to Chabad?
It's fascinating, the Chabad approach. So I actually did a ton of research on Chabad approach. And for example, there's beautiful sikhs like B'chukaisai Zayin talks about building through rewards and the Gashmias and elevating the Gashmias. But the common denominator that I'm seeing everywhere in that I'm doing research, I'm really collecting my photograph, learning, it's it's a slow process. Philip is not, oh, and then it's gonna be better. Try this. And there's this thing you do. Kid comes late, you give them a $20 class. Every time it works, I'm telling you, and then they're fixed. They never wake up a day late in their life. Kids on top, $20 class. Everything is a class. You pay the money. You have a fee. If a kid says a not nice thing, you kick him out of school, and that's it. And never gonna happen again because you showed him.
The times.
Right.
And I know I think it's one of the first things the Vidya says is this idea that chinuch is there's different skills that one needs or could use to teach or to educate, and the Vidya obviously breaks down into mix and chinuch, like we spoke about last week. And
it is very hard. If you actually want to change the people and make a real lasting impact on them, it's hard.
And making a podcast after a day of chinuch is also hard.
But you know what? It's like you're getting a workout, or like when I go climbing, right? And the first thing I want to do when I'm going to try a climb is see what the rating is. Why don't you see what the rating is? Because if I try a climb and I think it's an easy climb, I'm not going to put the effort that I'm going to put into if it's a hard climb. Same thing if I'm lifting weights. If I know it's a heavy weight, I'm going to put in a lot more effort. And I put a lot more mental effort to know where the holds are, to know where each thing is, because I have to be careful and I have to be thorough on each of my moves because I know that this is difficult. Versus when I know it's like it's a V2, like this is easy stuff. I could just skip holds, I could jump around, I could mess around because I know this is easy. I got this.
I like that. So 20 years, oh boy, I'm getting old. 25 years ago, sagacity, that's over, right? No, but 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, when I began looking at how do I train educators, it was in a camp counselor setting, which I'm still very involved in. But I always felt like there has to be tools. We have to teach people what to do in the situations. They don't mess it up. I think as I've matured and I've grown into this idea, there's not a lot of tricks that are going to happen in a summer camp experience. If we're expecting to turn a kid around, change the kid, new leaf, all that stuff, it's not realistic. That's not a realistic approach. But if a kid can walk out from a summer, that there's somebody who actually believes in it. There's somebody who believes in it. Not that in 4 weeks we're going to do all the right things, we're going to show up on time. Of course, we should do that too. But if they can, if my counselor believes in me, if my learning teacher believes in me, if my school, if my
So you just want to try to get another person on the kid's team.
yeah, but because they know that this person believes in me forever, not that they believe in me today.
Right.
So that idea.
Yeah.
That if
That's
we
like it's Freddie Grabber writes about a parent that the number one thing is that the kid knows that you absolutely love them unconditionally with all your heart.
right, and that's as a parent, I feel so blessed every time there's a challenge that I know that I'm able to say, of course, I love you anyways, and we're going to work this out together, no matter how long it takes. And that's the hard part. The hard part is not, and yes, there are times that you need to protect the child. You need from himself.
Policing.
Yeah, or protection. Sometimes it's policing because they're damaging the house with each other. Sometimes it's protection. I don't want you to. We talked about, cell phone's not a filter. I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Right. So could you just would we make a blanket rule like, oh, knasim are bad? Is that the attitude that we should take? That just putting penalties on kids that are just indiscriminate, that is not helpful.
Can I be really annoying and answer a question with a question?
Yes, I love that.
Okay. So I was like, my wife and I ran a camp for 20 years. So one of the things that happened is we hired the wrong person.
Okay.
And when that happened, I questioned everything. So the staff member got off the bus and I took one look and I'm like, oh my gosh, this was a mistake. This is not the person that I thought I was hiring.
Yeah, okay.
So, but then I didn't blame the staff member. I didn't even, well, maybe for 5 minutes, I blamed the person who I called as a reference. But
Right.
after a while, I was like, wait a minute, the buck stops with me. How did I hire the wrong person? And it's not me that I'm hurting. It's not my camera because I'm going to shield my camp from this person
Right.
in whatever way I'm going to go about it. But how did I do this to this person? Like I felt so bad. 16-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl, who I just set up for failure.
Right.
And I just did a ton of research. And the one thing that I learned from that experience is we don't do things because we do things or because that's how we've done.
Right.
We do it we ask ourselves why. So why do we do line up?
If there's a helpful benefit from it.
Right. So there is. So I think in many camps, there is a healthy benefit to line up. But in my camp, it didn't have any healthy. So I switched it to circle up, where we all face each other in a circle. And there's this nice community building, family building atmosphere because I love family.
And that worked for you in a smaller environment.
It even worked for me in my bigger camp. In Sarasota Winter Camp, I have videos of 120 Lubavitcher boys and
Giant circle.
there's a place built for it in camp, and we're all connecting in a very family oriented. Now, I don't know that translates to 350 kids.
Right.
I don't know if it translates to an 8-week camp. So,
And you felt that it gives the structure of the day that every kid knows where they're supposed to be.
so there you go. So you're already assuming.
Assuming that that's why you're doing line.
Line is for structure. In big camps, I think there is an element of line for structure. I'm not going to speak for other camp. But in my camp, it's for connection.
Line up for connection.
Yes, because
Or circle up for connection.
the point of that activity is to create safety.
Okay.
And the way we create safety is through connection.
So some people create safety through structure. That could be one way. And your way of creating safety was that you're connecting with each kid and making sure that they know that they're part of this group circle and that they all have a voice.
So if there's a camp director who asks themselves this question, why am I doing lineup in the morning?
Right.
Which I think is very important that any camp who's doing lineup should ask themselves that question.
Okay.
Right.
It sounds like anything you do, you have to.
Right. And so if they ask it, and the answer was that we need to create safety through structure, and that's the way they do it, then that's the way to go. So it didn't work out that way when my wife and I had our conversation. That's not where we went with it. We understood that the morning was about connection. That's what we need our kids to come up with. Why? Because we need them to feel safe. We also need them to feel a part of the family. And we want the belonging aspect was also able to be accomplished through that. And it works very well. Why am I doing all of this? Because why am I giving a class?
Right. Okay.
Because the kid has to come on time.
Right.
So now let's evaluate that expectation. Is it true that a kid needs to come on time in order to be successful?
Right.
Why?
Okay.
Now, I can answer that question.
Okay.
There's a lot of reasons why a kid needs to come on time.
Right.
Right. And you and I have been frustrated many times where the kid misses the first 5 minutes of school. And we even did a calculation that if a kid misses every 5 minutes a day for 2 weeks, that's like missing a full Chumash class. Right. So if you missed a full Chumash class, you'd be 4% behind. That would break the cadence or break the rhythm.
In school, it could be even more than that. It's like watching a video, but you only get to watch every 20 seconds. You get to watch the next 20 seconds because they're missing a pasuk there, a pasuk there.
Right, so it's worse. You're missing a whole day, but you're actually missing every day because every day you missed it.
Right, just try. Watch a video, skipping it to every 10 seconds, skip another 10 seconds.
Love it. Or don't watch a video unless you skip the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
Every time.
They skip the first 10 minutes, and then halfway through, skip another 10 minutes.
So yeah, so we all understand how frustrating that is. So now that we have that understanding, that the goal is that this person should want to be in class on time.
Okay.
Now the question is, what's the best way to get there? So there may be value in some programs that if I charge them money, they will come on time. If they come on time, they will love learning.
Right.
It may be
you're already assuming that the objective of a school is kids love learning.
Okay, fine. Right. So, or whatever. Or they're there.
To maintain the great name of the school might be a classic thing that you're told.
So I guess the question is, how do we do it if we don't trust them?
How do we?
I think a lot of people listening to this are going to be saying, okay, fine, I get it. Okay, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying between the lines, Rabbi Zalmy. You don't like this idea of punitive punishment, the coming out onto the kid and cussing that because it's punished. It's punished.
Right. So is there a complex blanket solution, or is it a complex solution that you need to think about yourself, think about your particular situation, think about the particular kids that you're dealing with? But one thing's for sure, in this scenario, the kid needs to come on time because we've just established that he's missing and it's a disaster. We got to come up with something that actually works. So now the question is, what actually works? Is there some sort of system like counseling? Maybe counseling works, maybe it doesn't, but for one thing's for sure, counseling is not getting you the kids to build a behavior that's going to stick with them for life.
No. And there's different ways of cussing people. I know, in my daughter's school, the two most impactful things on the GPA of high school is sneers and attendance. So that's their way of cussing, right? So you lose your GPA, which affects,
Right.
So that's just another way of cussing. So I think what I've learned in my own is that it's about belief. The child knows that the reason I expect them to be on time is because I believe that they belong here. I believe that they want to be here. I believe that they want to grow with me in school, whatever we're doing in our classroom. I believe that when you have that component, then it's beautiful.
You're not just talking about manifesting the kid to being on time. Like,
Absolutely not. I have a process.
right. You have a process and there's a conversation and there's a real problem solving
Yes,
protocol.
and part of that process is listening, like the story you just spoke about.
Right.
Am I listening to the pain? I listen.
Not making a general problem about the whole school and that it's a disaster that you're part of.
Do I hear you that you're coming late for a reason? First of all, what you want? If I believe you want to be here, ultimately, yeah, there's a level of your neshama that wants to be here, and there's a level of your guf that wants to be here. So what's bothering you? What's creating that block that you have to, every forbidden that's argument with me, that every class I have to come late, that I'm avoiding you?
There could be many problems that you're trying to resolve.
Of course, I don't know what the answer is.
I think it all goes back to you have to, number one, realize you're not just gonna, this is what we're gonna do. It's gonna be, that's it. We're done. We're over. We're gonna get a knas. It's gonna be problem solved and it's gonna be over. You have to accept at a certain point that there's a complexity to it and that chinuch is difficult. It's gonna be difficult for you and it's gonna be difficult for each person that you're coming up with. And if you want to actually genuinely change the people, the knas is not what's really doing that. Maybe the knas will temporarily get everybody, on time. Maybe it'll make
And again, if there's an important, and if there's an important goal, when I was in yeshiva, we found a credit card like logo sign, so we put it on the mashgiach. So that it was credit. It kind of kept it there, so that was cool. But anyway,
yeah, this is the place where
that's okay.
Where your money goes.
Anyway, but my point is there a way to show kids that we believe in them? Is there a way to put the kid behind the process? Because that's chinuch, right? Because then I'm educating the child.
You're initiating a really new behavior that's going to actually stick.
Commitment, organization, coming on time, responsibility. I'm responsible to be somewhere, right? And we may learn that it's actually not the kid's fault. Maybe it's the parent who's responsible for carpool that is not able to get there on time. And then what? So then maybe I should ask the parents, or maybe I should have the conversation with the parents. Maybe I should use the technique. Should I give it away? I have a 5-step conversation.
There's a whole long conversation that you were.
It's not long.
Okay. But it's a serious conversation.
I believe. Actually, no, it's not even believe. I know that you want to bring out the best in every single one of your talmudim.
Right.
I'm hearing right now you say the words, that you have a long process. Kiddushim are quick and easy. I get some desired results. Tell me more why you're pushing back over there.
I'm pushing back in order that you refute as strong as you can. That's why I'm pushing back.
Okay, so your goal is to kind of get me, you want to rile me up?
Absolutely.
Okay. Imagine you were able to just ask me directly, and you were able to just have the confidence that if you just ask Rabbi Zalmy, he'll tell you what he's thinking. Imagine you have that open communication. What would be our next step in developing that?
You could probably open a podcast and talk about things.
Just ask me, right? Okay, so that was the 5-step conversation.
Right. He was very adapted because there wasn't actually a major crisis.
Well, correct. It wasn't a major crisis, but I identified something that I felt, or I was a quality that we could identify right now, which was open communication. And
well, something that always strikes me about this is there's always a tell me more in the conversation.
Correct.
There's always digging and drilling and trying to figure out really, really to feel that make the person feel listened to.
So let me ask you 3 questions. Number 1, who identified the problem in the conversation? I identified what I saw, but you identified the problem. The problem is that you wanted to get me to already say what I wanted to say.
Yeah, you just describing it or saying what actually happened and then labeling it.
Yeah. And who came up with the solution was also you. So I believe that's chinuch. Chinuch means that we are giving a child tools forever. So if I knas you and therefore you come on time, as soon as the knas is gone, the tool is gone. What did they learn about responsibility? I don't know, because it was all me.
I also notice when you have this conversation, you really end up working on yourself a lot because you have to start thinking and you have to start progressing. And what the child is witnessing is an adult working on themselves and trying to figure things out. Because the child knows that the moment they do something wrong, quote unquote, that there's frustration by the adult, and they see the adult grappling with that and resolving it and thinking about it.
There's the adult believes there's a problem, right? The adult believes there's a problem. And if the child believes there's a problem, he doesn't believe there's a problem. I came 15 minutes out. I already did because
right. Sometimes I think most of the times.
So my wife, she's very good at the kids know already.
The time the kid knows.
You don't have to tell them that coming to school late is a problem.
Yeah, you usually don't have to tell the kid you're hitting your brother is not okay.
or taking a cookie without asking mommy is a problem. Like, you don't have to say that. They already know that's a problem most of the time.
Right.
So then, what are you? Why? Why are you just embarrassing them? Why are you just? Let's talk about what we believe in them. Imagine a child heard thousands of times in his life from his parents, hundreds of times a year from a teacher. I believe you're responsible. I see the way you take care of your skateboard.
Well, just saying I believe you're responsible is not the point, I think. The
Well,
point is pointing out the specific things that the child is doing
correct.
that demonstrate that being responsible.
Correct. Okay, fine. So yes, thank you for the clarification. Because I have hard facts, and this is what I'm seeing. This is what I know about you.
You gotta present facts. You gotta really show it.
This is what I know about you. This is what I know about. I know you are a responsible person because I see the way you behave in sports. I see the way you behave in school. I see the way you I see the way you behave in a million in places in life.
Right. I mean, the classic discussion between a kid coming late, let's say in yeshiva, is, well, I know that if there was a trip, you're up on time and bright and early, and you're going to be there on time. And now it's just because it's stay there instead, and just learning that's why you're late.
So,
And it's very accusatory and very much, oh, you're capable and you're not doing it anyways.
so I think what I heard in that conversation, which I would love to avoid in any conversation I've had with another human being, is the judgment.
Where's the judgment? The judgment.
So you said you started off with, I see you come on time in other places, but you don't come on time here. So that means,
okay. So the judgment is that
Right.
the interpretation of the fact.
correct. I don't need to do that.
So you want to ask the kid, why is that?
Tell me what's going on. I see you come on time here. I see you come late here. That's an observable fact. No one's talking about that.
It is a fact, and the kid's not going to be upset if you say a fact.
And tell me about that. And let the kid tell you. And listen. And really listen. And tell me more.
But often the kid doesn't even know why they're doing that. A kid could be coming late because they're not finding connection in the class, or they don't enjoy whatever experience.
They don't know, or they never were given the opportunity to think about it.
That's a very interesting twist on things, because then you realize maybe if the kid is given an opportunity to really have a conversation about it, he'll actually take more time to discover about what's really going on.
I've seen it hundreds of times, and not always in the first conversation. Sometimes I've had a student that for 5 weeks straight, every single day, I had the same conversation about a class that wasn't working out for them. And every single day we went through this exact same story. You know, I believe you when you say that you want to learn. I'm seeing today the notebook is empty. So tell me about that. And then yeah, okay. And then so what would be your next? And every day they came up with a new plan or a reaffirmation of an old plan. Yeah. And eventually it finally happened. It finally happened that it clicked. It clicked in the child. And
they drew a picture in the notebook. No,
it finally clicked in the child that they want to go back to class. They wanted class for a while.
Right.
And they wanted to go back to class. And that was it. The problem was over. It was solved.
So your way of dealing with it, though, was that the kid wasn't in the class for that while.
Can I ask you to ask me a different question?
Sure.
What do you think what do you think happened the 25th time that didn't happen the first 24 times? Because I had the same conversation.
The same conversation every time.
Well, the same format of the conversation.
The kid must have discovered something.
So I think what happened is that the kid finally felt motivated for whatever reason to listen to the words that I was saying.
Do you feel you were saying the same spiel every time you were saying,
and I meant it.
I know that you want to be in class, and I know that you're capable of learning, and I also noticed that you're doing this and this in class.
This isn't happening. Whatever outcome wasn't happening. And finally, and what was heard? Rabbi Zalmy actually believes that I can learn.
I mean, some people would say Rabbi Zalmy must be crazy because he keeps on saying the same thing and it's not working.
Well, everybody agrees that Rabbi Zalmy is crazy. This is an observable fact as well.
I think it's more of a judgment, but okay.
But it's based on fact. I think that's observable evidence. But it's just a condition is a thing.
I mean, it is wild to believe in a kid so strongly that you're going to go through the same thing 25 times.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only had one student that I think is more stubborn than I am. There's one student that literally until the last day of school, I had to ask them to turn in their device.
Every day.
Every single day.
Every day.
Every single day. So today I was teaching a class and they actually asked me to say that the class is awesome. It was our seniors class.
Okay. All right.
So we're related to that.
And you believe? Okay.
Shauna, I do believe that they're awesome. And in our class, we didn't have a lesson plan. I was subbing. Right. There was no lesson plan. There was no plan. Literally no plan. I found out.
It happens.
And I found out that they hadn't learned a lot of poetry. And I love poetry.
All right.
I love music. I see songs as poetry. I love the cadence and the sound of it. I love the whole thing. And so I decided that I'm going to teach them a poem today. And I got a lot of resistance.
Teaching a poem.
Yeah. Now, I believe that if I would have the opportunity to really give over this poem, they would actually fall in love with it the same way I will, because that's it. But and why do I think there's resistance? I have an idea. If everybody listening has an idea why they're resisting. It boils down to the probably not good. Your favorite sport is the one you're good at.
Okay, yeah.
That's the way it works. Right?
When you feel comfortable and confident, and
That's just the way it works. Right? So I'd like to crunch for a little bit. I did the whole question, and I said, I'm going to help you. Let's try something. Let me read that loud. Let's see what you hear. Immediately, what came out of their mouths after one reading was, "Can I write my own poem?"
just one time. They had resistance against doing anything clear poetry. And you read them a poem, and right away,
Yeah.
they just totally changed their mind immediately.
There's a couple steps that I want to take before we get to the writing their own poem part. And because I want there to be skills. I want there to be chemistry. I want there to be a lifelong skill that comes along with it that they're going to be able to take with them for a long time. And so there's a process.
So you're going to actually teach them how to write a poem properly.
What I think is important is that I believe that they can learn. I believe they can do well. I understand.
So the important thing is your belief.
Yes, and yes, I hear the resistance, and I understand the resistance, and it's true. They haven't had as much exposure as I've had to this. So of course we're at a different space, at a different place. We do the same thing in Chumash and Gemara. Of course, there's going to be resistance to a new skill, but it's hard. It's long. I'm ready for that because I know that. So it's okay. If every time a child resists something, the parent, the teacher says, "Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, let's try something else." So then you're not being mechanic. You're not educating. You're taking the easy way out the other way, which is backing up. And if every time they say resistance, excuse me, that's chutzpah to the principal's office,
right,
until they stop resisting. So they might not resist, but are they? But I don't know that they're with you on your team.
Right. You just created a power struggle and deep divide.
Yeah, and you may win the battle, but you're definitely not. You're not
connecting.
You're not teaching skills and tools for life. What does a child learn when the only way an adult can get them to do what they're doing is by bullying them through a knas? Because bullying, the definition of bullying is you assert a power or a control that you have over the other person.
Right. I found it very ironic because often kids will miss class or come late because they're not connecting. And the response to that could be what's going on, to lovingly care for them. It could be a cry for help. Kids showing up at 2 PM, or it could be a major cry for help. Like, what's going on? We got to figure this out. We have to have a discussion. We have to take care of you. We have to really go the long distance and really go the distance to make sure what's going on is taken care of. But then if you do the opposite, it's just like, okay, you know what? You're late. That's it. We're going to massive now. We're going to kick you out. We're going to send you home. And the kid is already feeling disconnected, already struggling. And now all he discovers is that's actually worse than he thought, because not only is he struggling, but he's told that we don't even need you here.
And what is the number? And what is the real fear? If I come on time, it'll be listening.
Oh, the good kid is the one who gets hurt the most. Right.
Everybody else in the class. So if I come on time, I'll be listening. If I don't come on time.
So the top kids in the class are now learning that this school is taking care of them because they are behaving.
Right.
At the moment, they are not the Siddish Bacher. The moment they're not wearing the hat and jacket and coming on time, going to mikvah and doing all the right things, these people are not going to like them.
So maybe here's a controversial but very obvious example. I do a lot of camp trainings. So a lot of camps talk about what if the kid doesn't listen? What if the kid doesn't want? And I always push for an example. So tell me what is it that the child doesn't want to do? And I get two things. Either they don't want to play an activity, and I say, so what? And I don't know, maybe
just let them not play.
Well, is it okay if they don't play?
Right.
Why do they have to play an activity? Is there another option? And maybe there is a reason. Maybe in this camp, if they don't, it's going to derail the whole structure. And we have ways of helping children try activities and expand it. The other one is davening.
Davening is the number one problem in camps.
They don't want to daven. And I always turn back to the counselor and say, just before we continue, how old were you when you started loving davening?
That's some shluch in that, right? They don't like davening. Adults?
I'm happy to answer the question for myself. I was 20 years old.
20. Okay.
When I started to love davening, I was 20 years old.
Wow.
When I started to try to love davening, I was 17. So I have 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old campers. I davened because either I wanted to get a Rabbi picture, which was a very frustrating activity, honestly, because they only give out one for like the whole camp.
Right.
The odds are pretty low. Or I davened because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Right. Interesting. I also had a major
or because I didn't want to get in trouble, but also from Hashem. Like,
right.
that's what I'm supposed to do.
Supposed to do.
I was a Kabbalah song.
Right.
It was. I like following the rules. But not because I connected. I didn't know the words. I didn't even read all the words properly. When I was much older than 20, I realized I was saying a word wrong. So like,
I actually remember exactly when I decided that I was going to try to love davening.
How-
It must have been like 10 or 11. And I remember exactly what happened. I remember I was not davening. I would do anything I could to get out of davening. Wild kid running around. And my mother, my poor mother, had to try to get me to daven and sit still and daven and care about Yiddishkeit. And
Mhm.
I'll be like, who cares? No one believes in this stuff anyways. It's all ridiculous. I was very rebellious, very, very rebellious. And I remember it was a Shabbos afternoon. It must have been like 12:30, 1 o'clock. And the Shabbos table is set for the Shabbos meal. We're back home already. Whatever, running around, doing up to no good. And I'm arguing with my mother, as usual. And my mother says, you know what? You're skeptical of this thing? I want to show you something. And she takes me to the basement door. We will go down into the basement and say, shh, quiet. And I'll never forget this. I go down the stairs and I see my father standing in the basement in his tallis. I'm going to sit there. Like, can't even describe it. It's just beautiful. Saying every word and singing it to himself. There's no anyone there. Looking back, that was, I'm so blessed to have such an amazing kind of.
So exactly. So there's, but
My mother didn't even tell me anything.
tell you anything. She didn't expect you to walk upstairs and start davening because
Right.
she just knew that I have to give this child a tool, which is going to be, in this case, a video that he's going to watch, right?
Well,
A lot of,
yeah.
okay, fine, right? Which he's going to be able to replay in his mind that there's a thing called loving God, right? And that's something that he's going to grow up with, and eventually, when he's able to read the words and then understand the words.
It was a long journey from there to start really, and I'm still
I
on
think
that
we're still
journey.
on that journey. I'm still on that journey. I'm still on the journey. And if any parent or a teacher looks at themselves in the mirror, then we know that we're not yet davening the way we're supposed to daven. We all know that we can improve our davening. Everybody knows that. And if that's the only thing that our campers walk out of, it's the only thing our students walk out of knowing is that davening is a lifelong journey of communicating with Hashem. And right now we're learning how to communicate with Hashem. And we're probably going to, Hashem's infinite. We're always going to be growing on that.
I mean, do you find that there's a flip side as well? If you let a kid, if you just walk by and you see a kid running around during davening, playing with a ball, and you just walk by and don't say anything, this is the other side. You're also validating poor decision making and disrespect. There has to be something.
So wouldn't it be wild if the child had someone go over to him and say, hey, I know that your relationship to Hashem is important to you.
Right. But you have to actually do something.
Yeah. Your relationship to Hashem is important to you. I saw you holding a baseball during davening and throwing it up and down. Tell me about that. Yeah, well, is that
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Or davening's boring,
Right.
or
Well, yeah. So, yeah, you're fine. But then we get to ask the child if your relationship to Hashem as your relationship to Hashem is important. Imagine we're able to use davening to strengthen that relationship.
this conversation also is not always going to go the same.
Never.
Because it's
Not
a
once.
difficult conversation. It's always going to branch out a million different ways, and you really have to be an intelligent person to do it this way.
The reason
It might not be
that
that
is what
you're not the right person either.
Okay, I want to translate what you're saying. The reason it's going to go different ways is because the keys to the conversation is in whose hands?
In the kid's hands.
You have no control. A lot of adults say that.
I want to be able to say, this is what's happening. You're getting in class. You're going home. You're out of here. You have an alternative.
I don't care how much duct tape you use. You cannot make me quiet.
Right.
Make me quiet. You can't. You don't have control over me as another person. That's why it's called self-control.
It's also interesting.
I just want to say that was the only good part of Zoom.
You can force everyone to be quiet. Yeah, the quietest classrooms
Not that
ever.
anybody was looking, but
Right.
but that totally happened.
Quiet.
That totally happened.
Yeah. It's interesting.
They weren't quiet anymore. We just
Exactly. Is the foundation of Yiddishkeit as we know it. You have mitzvahs like the mitzvahs b'nei all sorts of things. Yet, the paskin that b'chinuch is not a mitzvah saseh midaraisa. And my understanding of that, and based on it, there's a beautiful Pesach Sikha that I learned. You cannot command somebody to control somebody else or the outcome. Of course, you can give your effort, but chinuch can't be a mitzvah saseh midaraisa. Because if you make chinuch a mitzvah saseh deraisa, then okay, what if the guy fails? Then did he not do the mitzvah?
I like to say you can't give responsibility without authority. It can't be my job to make a kid learn if I don't have the authority to make the kid learn.
I don't have the authority over his brain or his bodily function.
Right? I can't. I can't do that. Adults hate that.
It's very hard. Anyone hates to be out of control.
And maybe that's what the video means, that it's a hard skill
Mhm.
because
It's
we're
not physically hard. It's not like, well, if you lift enough, you'll be able to lift.
it's also physically hard.
It's different.
It's draining.
It's draining, but it's not like you
Oh, it's not
learn the
physically hard like
memory.
right. Well, it's not like digging a trench. For
Emotionally, mentally complex, where it stretches your mind and makes you
because
think about things and
yes.
maybe deal with your tendency for frustration or all sorts of other things. But it's not the same as physical exertion where I know, hey, I want to be able to score 3-pointers. I'm going to take 6,000 shots a month or whatever it is.
Even something that works at the beginning of the year doesn't work at the end of the year. The kids are advancing. The kids are maturing.
They're humans.
They're human beings. They're morphing. They're changing. Their family situation is changing. The weather is changing. Their body is changing. There's so many things changing. I'm going to have to grow. I'm going to have to do something different.
Every time, if you want to do something, every single time, you just have to have a different plan. You can't just have a system of doing a certain thing.
Well, I think you can have a foundation.
A foundation of Kabbalah.
Okay. But also a foundation of belief in the children that ultimately Hashem is a part of them and their lives. They have an neshama that's a chilek common mamish. Hashem chose parents for them that are the right parents for them. Yes, we made as a team, the school and the parents and the child will all work together. And of course, the parents, as a parent, I look towards people to grow as a parent, even though, I don't have all the answers, obviously, but I want to do it. And Ashgacha Pratis put this child in my classroom, in my school, in my presence. We're meant to Nefesh Kids are gonna help us Nefesh grow.
But if there's a kid that's disturbing your class and you have not yet resolved it, then we have to figure something out right then. That sometimes has to be something for the moment.
Yes, of course.
If a kid is running out and into the street,
of course.
You
So
need a-
we spoke, like we said last time, policing, protecting, and providing
right?
are functions of a teacher as well.
And if a kid is right now disturbing the davening, we need to separate them from the situation and make it clear that this is not okay.
And know that we're not giving that we at that moment have not given them one tool.
Right. They actually aren't changed.
That's happened yet.
Started yet.
It hasn't started, or maybe it started, but it's not happening now. It's not happening now.
Right. And if you throw a kid out of school, there's not necessarily anything up there either.
I'm not. I would. Yeah, I would love. I would love for everybody to sit and have a. I can't imagine that 5-step conversation with a parent that the solution is going to be throw them out of school. I don't believe that there's a child, and there may be a child's not right for our school. It's very possible.
Basically, there's no child that deserves to just be thrown to the dogs.
Thrown out of school? No.
Right.
If the decision is made together that
right now, the plan or
I don't understand. I believe in every child has a place, and every child can learn. So there's definitely things they can learn from me and from you and from us and from our family.
But you don't think that there's a blanket thing like this is a classic where people will just like write on a massive WhatsApp group. To always find interesting because it's always the person with the most time that answers you right away, which probably might not be the best person to get advice from. But anyways, people will throw out on WhatsApp, a kid used a bad word in class. What do I do?
What do I do? So that question, so I have a bigger problem with the question than the answers.
Interesting.
In other words, if you think that someone's going to give you a tool that you can use to solve that problem, maybe that's not what they're looking for. I don't know what they're looking for. We have to ask them. So
there you go.
I just did it to them, right?
There you go. You can't why are they asking on a WhatsApp group with
so imagine how overwhelmed a teacher has to be to ask that on a WhatsApp group. Right. So they need a tool. They need a fix. And imagine we were able to have that conversation with that teacher and say, look, you obviously want your students to speak well.
Right.
I'm hearing you ask at a WhatsApp group. Tell me, fix it. Tell me about that. Tell me about that desire to fix it right now.
I can't have other kids hearing it.
They might say something like that. Yeah. So I got to make it stop now. Right?
It's an emergency. It's an emergency.
Yeah, we have to do something.
There are emergencies.
I agree.
There's just not going to be any blanket rules of how to do things because it's just going to establish.
But I think there can be blanket processes. In other words, the 5-step conversation can be a process that is employed at the earliest convenience or at the earliest moment that's possible. I think that's a process that we can put into place.
What I find fascinating about the whole 5-step process is that it's the same process that I would use if I wanted to improve a behavior that I have for myself.
Correct.
Number one thing is, well, why am I coming late? What's going on over here? I have to tell myself.
Curiosity, yeah. Listening to yourself.
Listening to myself and see, why is this behavior keep on going? I don't want to keep on going through the same thing over and over and over again.
So, by the way, I think people are just as much scared of themselves as they are of others. I think a lot of people are scared to listen to themselves, and maybe that's okay when you're a little kid and when there's hard times, but don't get mad at yourself, because
listen to what's going on,
yeah,
and
maybe that's
also
maybe that's
yourself
yes.
that you really want to do. You really want to do what's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to believe in other people, I got to start with believing in myself.
And then in that process, you'll be able to elevate all those different tools that you used
Over time.
It's ironic because the chinuch and teaching is actually two totally different skills. It's like just like painting and playing basketball. It's two totally different things.
That is Kalaka's point. In other
Right.
words, teaching is relatively straightforward.
It's not. It's also complex.
It's relatively straightforward.
Right. Okay. That's it.
We can go to college to learn how to teach a lesson plan.
Right.
There's a relatively straightforward system of how to communicate information.
I mean, teaching creativity, teaching analysis.
But even then, there's a template of a lesson plan. There's a template. You know, what are you trying to what hard skills are you trying to teach? What soft skills are secondary skills?
Yeah, I'm trying to infuse the kid with knowledge of certain materials. Then there's got to be a process. Versus when I'm trying to teach a kid knowledge
To be responsible.
about to be responsible or how to not make a mess when they eat. There's no clear cut template because it comes from such a yucky place. It's disgusting. It's davar mechur. It's gross. Any chinuch that you're doing feels it's yucky. You're dealing with nasty things, and when you're dealing with nasty things, you get emotionally involved too. When you're struggling with it yourself, and you start wanting to be combative.
So I once did a workshop with Rabbi Freeman, and he mentioned to me that a story he's told publicly, so I think it's okay. That his son asked him. I told him one day that he doesn't want to go to shul on Shabbos. I want to go to shul. So Rabbi Shimon response was, when you say I, he's like, it's already just seems like it's already, but he still doesn't want to go to shul. So on. He's like, well, let's have a conversation and let's see what we can do to convince the Yitzhara that he does want to go to shul. But so that itself is such a powerful belief. Let's just please frame there for a second.
Right.
You do want to go to shul. This is Yitzhara that's a lot. Right? So they came up with whatever they came up with. They're going to have 15 extra minutes or whatever, and they're going to have bubble gum when they come home. And then the story was that when he came home, on the way home, he said, I don't want bubble gum. That was the deal, right? He said, because I don't want my Yitzhara to think the only reason I went to shul is for bubble gum.
Oh, so sweet.
So the father's belief in the child brought out that belief was realized that, yes, of course I want to do this. Of course I want to do this. And of course, my Yitzhara doesn't. And of course, my body is annoyed by how long.
It's beautiful how instead of turning the bubble gum into the focus, ultimately they elevated that bubble gum because it became a side thing that was used in the process.
And it always belonged to the Yitzhara. The bubble gum was always about the Yitzhara. I don't eat bubble gum without it. The Yitzhara does.
The Alter describes your Guf and Nefesh Haran as being the fuel that the Nefesh Elokis needs to burn.
You were saying, in other words, there is a disgusting side of our nature that has to be elevated and refined. Right. And one of the things I just heard from the Rosh and from Freeman, he said that Yisrael, Jewish people have to be happy with his creation, Hashem's creation. Perish, what does that mean? Shekol Mishum Mizar Yisrael. Every year, Yisrael L'Shmeach B'Simchas Hashem. To be happy with Hashem's happiness. What's Hashem happy about? That he's happy with his dwelling place in Tachtayim, in the struggle, in the dirt, in the schmutz, in the challenge, in the ugly bites. That's exactly what makes Hashem happy. Right. Is that a kid who doesn't want to learn Gemara develops his own thing. A kid who doesn't understand why he's davening, when he's 20 years old, understands why he's davening. That's what makes Hashem happy. That's what should make us.
Right. There's also another difference between teaching. They're not just that it's more gross and it's more yucky and it's more difficult, but also if you don't teach a kid a certain knowledge, okay, fine, they'll learn the knowledge later. But if you don't teach a kid how to keep eating neatly when they're young, it's very hard to teach that when they're older.
It's very possible they will be grabbing that ring at the forbidden with them.
Right. And in the Frida Grabber's words, not only if you miss chinuch, not only are you not fixing, but you're being mekalko. You're ruining the kid.
No pressure.
No pressure. So that means, on the one hand, you can't just have a system that's blanket going to fix it. So you actually have to put in the work. But on the other hand, if you don't put in the work, then you're being mechanical of the child.
I don't think it's fair to say that there should be no system. I think that the system has to be built on belief and not an expectation.
Yeah,
Process.
but a system means that it's defined the way that every time this is how we deal with it.
You're not. One of the funniest things I've ever heard is zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance to bullying in our school. If we actually exercise that, we would have no students in our school.
Right.
And half the teachers would also have to be excused.
Just
Right? I mean, if I say to a kid, can I go to the bathroom? No, you cannot. That is bullying. I exercise my control
over them.
over
Right.
to
That's
get them to do what I want.
What is considered bullying? What is considered blanket rules?
Fine, zero tolerance. What is zero tolerance? Every time a kid makes fun of a kid, you kick him out of school. That's what it means. So we don't actually have systems like that. Even the systems we have, we don't have systems like that.
Right.
Even the custom system, it's not actually enforced every single time.
Right.
They don't actually kick out a kid if that for 1, 2, 3 strikes you out.
There's always leeway. There's always a discussion. There's always a whole debate, and a creative solution ends up. But instead of being proactive with those creative solutions, it always comes after there's 3 strikes and after there's frustration and after there's a class already.
And without the consistent
Believe
to the child that I believe in you. Because if I give you a $20 class, what that means is that you messed up, you cannot stay on time, and I need to punish you. Meaning I don't believe in you.
There's people combative within yourself. Working on yourself is difficult to get through to the child as well. Also a difficult process for the child too. To have that conversation with an adult, it's tough for them too. You have to acknowledge that as well. And you're working it through. You're not ignoring it. You're believing in them at the same time. And you're working together to come up with a solution that actually works for the two of you. And it only works, frankly, if you're intelligent and a good quality mechanic. Which begs the question is, okay, if I'm not getting through to the kid, is it because of me? How do we know whether we have a good mechanic on hand or
So
not?
I think that goes back to what we were saying last week. Just be yourself. If you are the reason you're there is to help shape.
But if myself is not good enough is another question though.
If you're there to shape other people's lives,
right,
and to be mechanic, and you are doing this under the guidelines of Torah, and you have a mashpia, and you are true to who you are, I believe you will grow into being a master mechanic. Because if you have that belief in yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, or you don't believe in the kids,
it is a matna selikim. It is a gift from God, whether you are
so
still getting through to people.
I definitely don't have I'm not good at judging other people.
You're very good at judging people. You're hiring and
I'm good at believing people.
And sometimes you don't have that belief and you don't put them in a class. Okay, certain people don't belong in a class. They don't belong in a kind of role. And we have to have the right people that we ask advice from. And we were very selective of that. And we're very judgmental of people's character when we're trying to figure out who's the right person to consult with.
I guess we're saying the same thing. In other words, yeah, but I think if someone wants to do this and is ready to be trained and is ready to grow and can, then they can.
They have that, let's say, withedness, that understanding of other people, those social skills. If somebody has severe autism and they don't understand the behavioral mannerisms or other things.
One of the people I'm very close with was a master camp educator. He's not Jewish. His name is Scott Arizala. He runs a camp.
Didn't sound Jewish.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He runs the campcouncil.com. But he has camps for special needs. One of his camps is for children who struggle with autism on the spectrum, and he has every single bunk has a counselor that is on the spectrum. And one of the things he said, and other staff members as well. And one of the reasons he does that is because he wants the kids to know this is my camp. And if it's my camp, then I could become a staff member of this camp.
Wow.
I go into this camp. And he has amazing stories.
Also makes it less condescending, less like, oh, we're taking care of you. No, we have potential.
So
we can grow.
So here's a belief question. Do we believe that every one of our students can ultimately grow into be able to?
No. In a certain way, but I mean, do we believe that every kid playing basketball can be Michael Jordan? No.
But we do believe that they can be a mechanic, they can be a parent.
Right. We could believe that they could be capable.
They might not be
There's just level.
Okay,
and also might not be as good as a parent as somebody else.
Okay, so but they're going to be the perfect parent for their kids because Hashem's giving to them.
Hashem's giving them. I don't know about that. I think there's some people that are better at parenting than others.
The right children for themselves, and I think that everybody has,
and the right people around to support them.
Yes.
To help them and advise them.
Yes.
And they have to also learn the tools. Exactly. They have to learn the tools and by other people. Right. We all have to have much PM and thing, but some people need more help in certain things. Some people need more help in other things.
Okay.
Some people
So
need
get
more
it.
help when a physical thing is broken in their house, right? When the cabinet is broken in my house, either I spend 6 hours trying to figure it out, or I can hire somebody. But when it comes to something in the kiddush, somebody else might need.
If a parent listens to our podcast every week, will they be okay?
No, it's not just like you do this one trick, you listen to this one
Of course
podcast,
not.
and you're gonna be okay.
That's just so. I think what we're saying is everybody is going to be in a chinuch role in their life. Everybody is going to. You are. You're going to be in a
You're in a position of influence.
You are. The goal is to try to develop as many tools as you can.
Right. It's a mitzvah on every single yid. Well, mitzvah derabanan of chinuch. V'vartabam is more for yourself. Mitzvah of chinuch is mitzvah derabanan. Every yid has to influence others. The Rabbi spoke, the Rashab spoke that every person should spend half an hour a day thinking about chinuch.
What are we up to? Okay, we're already way over that. Okay.
More than half an hour. More than an hour.
You did more than half an hour now. Okay. No, but the point is that everybody's a chinuch, and we have to know that it's hard.
Right.
Don't think that there's an easy way to do this.
There's no cheap hacks, no easy tricks.
And dig in. I think everybody should dig in to getting better at this. Maybe not in that classroom, maybe not in that basketball team coaching, maybe not in that tutoring job. Maybe you shouldn't be. Maybe you don't have the right personality or skills yet. But dig into schools.
At a certain point, a person has to figure out whether they're the right person or they're not the right person to deal with this particular situation. What is the thought process when analyzing and deciding whether I'm good to go and I could just figure this problem out, or I need to call my mashpia, I need to call somebody who's an expert in this field?
I don't believe there's a hack for that either. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But
there is a necessity for awareness and a process. And what is that process? How do I decide, okay, you know what? I know what I'm going to do for this kid. I'm going to have this 5-step talk and then we're going to resolve it. Or, you know what? This is something serious. I need to go call for advice. I need to figure out what I'm going to do.
I mean, if we're talking about college and the there's a whole bunch of evaluations that need to take place, a whole bunch of understandings of where the kid's holding and what the challenge is and what the actual problem is.
Right.
What the root of the problem is. And I think that as we develop those, as you evaluate and as you learn and as you try, as you determine what's really going on, that will determine the process that you're going to take. Freeman, I think that at this point we should have a closing remark from Rabbi Freeman.
A closing remark?
We've been doing this for a while. But we started off with a beautiful story of
deep, loving care.
Of a child knowing that person believed in him.
Right.
And we spoke about that the process of chinuch is very difficult. And because it's not simple, we're not just fixing and just turning on and off switches.
We're not mechanics.
Is it right? There's a process. We spoke about the importance of belief as an example of a tool. We spoke about the 5-step conversation. What would you say is, if we had to take one takeaway from this, what was
right? I think my takeaway is what I heard from Rabbi Shei's Taub, which is when we approach a child and we see the complexity and we see, there's this problem, there's that problem. And what we're really noticing is there's infinite possibilities. And that infiniteness is an neshama. And we could be scared of, oh, what if this, what if this is, what if it doesn't work, and all the possibilities that could happen. So we could be fearful. But instead of being fearful, what if we take a minute to be in awe of the child? Be in awe that there's a neshama here. This is amazing, the fact that he can go in a million ways. The fact that he might not listen to me is amazing. I'm not dealing with a robot. I'm not dealing with a machine over here. I'm dealing with a neshama. And I was gifted by Hashem this mitzvah, this special opportunity to be able to interact with this neshama and bring it out and realize that, you know what, this neshama also wants the right thing. So there are a million possibilities, but I know that this is a neshama. Let me see what this neshama is going to come up with. Let me see how amazing it's going to turn out. And just remind yourself that you also have a neshama. And with that infinity and the Mitzvah Hashem together, something beautiful is going to happen. All right. All right. That's that.
All right. We did it. We did it. All right. Here comes the awkward part.
The awkward moment.
I love this part.
Leave? What do we do? Stop.